Hello and welcome to Die Hard on a podcast. This is our
22nd.
22nd
20, yeah.
episode, and so that's something that's pretty cool that we're actually chugging along. And because George Romero, who was a legendary filmmaker, passed away, was it 2 weeks ago? We decided we would
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
his movies, and we didn't want to go Night of the Living Dead because we figured that would be kind of too obvious. So we went, and I'd like to say we went with Night Riders. And the first thing I want to say is that I know Night of the Living Dead was like iconic, and it spawned this whole genre of movies. And I feel like Night Rider should be just as iconic. You know, like there should be Night Rider conventions where people joust each other on motorcycles. You know, there should be Night Rider video games. I mean, how awesome would a Night Rider video game be?
Oh my god! And next time I go to like a convention, I'm tempted. I never dress up or anything, but I'm tempted to dress up as like Tom Savini and Night Riders just because it'd be fucking awesome.
Right,
I mean?
right.
Or fucking Ed Harris or something, or even like dress up as like Stephen King as like the the really like disgusting fan or whatever. I
Yeah, absolutely.
was like, there should be more cosplay of Night Riders for sure.
Right.
But yeah, this was done right between Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead. I mean, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. It's about that.
Yeah.
So, which is really, I don't know, it's just like really, it's just such a weird movie to get made. And I was listening to the commentary, and they shot it for 90 days. Like,
Yeah, they
it's
did.
insane.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It's insane. Like this type of movie, like you can't even like kind of classify it as anything. It's like it's a drama, but it's like I guess it's just a drama, but it's like a weird like hybrid of I don't know what you I don't know social commentary. Like
Yeah, and like actually, from there's like social commentary in it, and it's got that kind of like almost like the Warriors feel. Like it's almost like a gang movie.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and it's something that like I noticed when we were watching Assault on Precinct 13,
Mm.
and in this too is doesn't it just seem like the world was a way more dangerous place in like the late 70s early 80s like that whole movie, even though it's not really got like that whole warriors violence feel, like the whole time it just felt like random violence could break out at any time, and everywhere they went they were running the risk of getting like beaten up by cops, or the locals were going to kick them and spit on them, and and it just like the whole world just seemed grittier back then.
What's
um,
like them riding around on their bikes the entire time I'm watching. I'm just like, what happens if one of the bikes gets loose? Like it's just gonna maul in like the entire crowd, which never happened. But I was like, the entire time I was watching, I was like, it's a really tiny circle
no,
that
it
they're
did
just.
it did happen. It did happen. Remember the woman goes to save the baby and the bike hits her.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, because in the very first one, a bike gets loose and runs off towards the crowd, and like some of the guys in the festival like head it off and stop it before it gets in the crowd. But then
That's
when they're having that one joust, the bike gets loose and it's going straight for the baby. So the woman pushes her kid out of the way, and it just nails her.
that's right. Because it's like you watch it, it's like holy shit.
Yeah. Well, and that was another thing that I was thinking. Like whenever they go to that first one in the late 70s, the cops basically just want to bribe, and even when they
Yeah.
say they're not going to bribe them, they don't shut it down. But like in
No,
2017, if they tried to do that, like every government agency for fucking 300 miles around would be like, no, there's no way you're doing this. We're not letting you kill each other on motorcycles. Which I think is to society's detriment. Personally, I think that we were much better off letting people do that kind of shit.
what's like the basically like the what you would call the meet cute in a movie, like
Right.
where the people like kind of like run into each other. It's basically the guy's riding his motorcycle through the crowd and almost runs into her and like basically turns his bike over and they're like, oh hey, what are you doing? Oh, you're adorable. Let's take a
Yeah.
ride.
Yeah.
I think he
That's
was
so
like
true.
almost killed somebody.
Yeah. And I love the cameo by Stephen King. He actually
Oh
had
my
kind
god.
of a decent, like he makes cameos in a lot of stuff. Usually stuff that he's written, which I don't think this is based on a Stephen King story at all, is it?
No, but him and Romero were working on Creep Show at the time, so
Oh, okay. See,
they're about
so
to do that. So
Got it. That makes sense because I mean, I was like, holy shit, Stephen King. Like, I mean, sure, he's just an extra, but he still has like a couple lines. Like, he's like, oh, this is all fake. It's like professional wrestling, and he's like, like your average local drunk redneck guy. I was like, that's kind of awesome.
yeah, and like his wife is his wife in the movie, and like says something about like the guys in the tights, and then there's a close up of like the guys like crotch or something. I forget what she says exactly, but
Right.
something about that, and she's like, "Oh yeah." Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, that reminds me of just like, I mean, in Birth of the Living Dead, I was totally blown away in the part where, they're talking to like one of the film professors, and he goes, it's an interesting thing. George Romero never says why the zombie outbreak occurs, and then it cuts to George Romero, and he goes, God changed the rules. There's no more room in hell. And I was like, holy fuck, that is awesome.
well, it's like that's like part of like the slogan for the Dawn of the Dead. It's like when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like the tagline. So it's like it's the best.
And watching the documentary Birth of the Living Dead really made me sad because the possibility of getting to hang out with George Romero like is no longer around, and he seemed like, I mean, like, doesn't he seem like just like the coolest guy you could ever hang out with? Like, he didn't take the whole interview, he didn't take any of it seriously.
Yeah, and that's like with all of his commentaries, they're like the most informative and laid back commentaries, but they're so rooted in like do it yourself filmmaking, independent filmmaking. It's just like every time even if you don't like his movies, you're just like, oh, you're just in all of like his
Right.
way, like stayed independent the entire time. Basically,
Well, and
it's cool.
I thought it was funny how it mentioned that he made that short film for Mr. Rogers about him going to get his tonsillectomy.
Oh yeah,
And
that's the best.
I actually remember seeing that as a kid and being terrified of it. And he even says that remains the scariest film I've ever made. And I remember being a kid and being like, "Oh my god!" Like
Well, when you watch it, it looks terrifying.
it
It
really
does look like
does. And I remember being like really really scared of that as a child.
hmm, it looked frightening. It looked like it was like almost like some sort of weird dream sequence, and
Yeah, or almost like a propaganda film for like Nazis in freaking concentration camps or something.
yeah, it's like oh, it's okay. He's a nice guy. He's just
Yeah,
gonna
it's just
fucking
it's only a shower. Don't worry. Um, but yeah, now back to Knight Riders. Like I think we both agree that this is one of the biggest, most underrated movies of at least of George Romero. But I mean, I think of like the '80s in general because it's so different than anything else. I mean, could you think of any other movie, even in the last 30 years since that's come out, 35 years since that's come out, that's even remotely like it?
yeah. That's what I'm saying. I can't imagine it. And it's like really long too, like which is
Yes.
shocking. It's like this really long movie and it goes through like a ton. Like it's like epic in scale, but like it doesn't have the money for it, but still it.
Right.
when
It's still it
anyone,
doesn't care. It's like whatever. You know.
they talk about that too. They talk about like how Romero writes with this huge scope in mind, and somehow he still is able to do it no matter what, even like his scale is like so big.
Right.
They were talking about like Dawn of the Dead, like, oh my god, you're not gonna be able to do this, and they fucking did, and Day of the Dead, and this as well. They're just like, how much fucking money do you think we got, George?
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
Somehow he pulls it off every time. It's
Well, and it's nuts that was such a guerrilla film. That like he was just some dude in Pittsburgh, and like the first thing it's the documentary about the movie says is he's like, we never really knew whether we were gonna actually finish this or not. We didn't know if we were gonna have the money or the resources. And it is really remarkable when you see the story that they were actually to accomplish what they did. I mean, it revolutionized the whole genre. It revolutionized horror movies in general, but I mean, created something that we still see as enormously popular even today.
yeah, I mean, fucking zombies are everywhere. It's basically thanks to fucking George Romero, like good or
Right.
bad. Like,
Yeah, because before that, zombies were actually towards their root. Because zombies originally were in Haiti and in the voodoo religion, they would they would give people this freaking potion that basically lobotomized them, and they were still alive, but they were like the living dead because it freaking fucked their brains up so much that they could perform basic functions, but not much else. And apparently that's a real thing. Apparently, It's documented that this has been done, and there's some concoction that they do, and it basically just lobotomizes a person. It just basically deforms their brain. And up until George Romero, that's what zombie movies were these people who were basically, just whacked out on these crazy voodoo drugs.
Mm.
And he kind of took it to the whole new, like, back from the dead, I want to eat your brains thing.
Yeah, I mean, he took it to a different level and like more of a social commentary, because all of his movies are super like just commentaries on like society and this and that. So
Right.
to a more political level for sure. And
Yeah. Well, and
yeah,
that was another thing from the documentary that was funny was, it talks about how the lead role is a black man, but they never actually make a big deal out of it because he said we didn't write it as a black man. We just wrote it as some guy, and you were the best guy for the part. And I never even thought, like, whenever I watched it, I've seen that movie a dozen times, and
Mhm.
never once did it occur to me like, oh, look how radical it is that in 1968 we have a black man as a leading character who slaps a white woman. Like, it makes so little emphasis on it. It's a huge statement, like it's such an understatement that it really works for it. I mean, I never, like I said, it never even crossed my mind like, oh, this is controversial or anything. I was just like, okay, he's the hero,
Yeah, it's funny, and they don't like address it at all. And like, do you think the couple that comes out of the basement when I learned that would be the type who would to address it?
Right,
Like, they seem like they would be like racists,
right,
but
right.
they're not, which is nice. But also, it's just funny to watch Night of the Living Dead, like with the contrast of his face, with the contrast to like the Living Dead faces, which are all like white and pasty.
Yeah,
So it's almost like unintentionally like contrasty, which is
right.
like
He really does stick out against all the freaking white and pasty dead people. And
yeah,
I also wasn't aware that they got a guy from the meatpacking plant to actually bring like actual organs and entrails from animals to use. That like I wasn't grossed out by it when I first saw it, but then whenever I saw the clips of it, oh man, like I'm still like, oh god,
they
that's
do that.
pretty awesome.
They did that in Day of the Dead too, when they ripped the one guy apart, and they were talking about the guy having to sit, like he's buried, because they rip him apart. The main guy gets ripped apart at the end, and like you can see his head still like moving because
Right.
he's like near a table, and he had to like sit there all day with all this rotting meat in his like fake stomach, and it was like everybody was just getting sick. And,
Oh, I
like
bet.
he could just smell it all day, so he's trying not to pass out. God,
Wow.
fucking gross.
Yeah, that's really gross. Yeah, well, and even George Romero was like, I couldn't believe how into it they got. He's like, you wouldn't catch me doing that.
And everybody was like just like a local celebrity. It's like, oh, this guy sold cars, and this guy we did a commercial for.
Right.
We just had one random lady who could be nude just from the back, and like it's like
Yeah. Well, and I'm not sure if you ever spent any time in Pittsburgh, but it was whenever I was watching the documentary, I thought, that is so Pittsburgh. Like, I mean, it's just kind of the attitude of the whole town. Like, okay, let's make a movie. We'll all chip in and do it. Like it's kind of the way that town is.
that was always like growing up. Like I read a book about, I think it was from one of his producers, and they wrote basically I think it's called Making Movies, and he wrote like a lot about the commercial production company they had. Was it Leighton Image? I think it was called.
Right.
He talked a lot about those guys, and it's just like how everybody would come together. It was just like this scrappy little group of like filmmakers making commercials and then making movies, and it's fucking
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I mean, and that's the kind of thing that you see that gets you to the next level of film in general. Like look at like Reservoir Dogs or I'm trying to think of something, or Clerks. Like I mean, Clerks is another great example. Is he basically just recruited his whole neighborhood to make a movie, and when
yeah.
it came out, it was so different that it really kind of changed everything. Like you can see like with Judd Apatow's mainstream films how much of an influence Kevin Smith's early like budget, like I'm just gonna take my film school money and make a movie
Mhm.
is in that.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess that's that's like the selling point for like not moving to like out here to LA to make movies.
Right.
You do it in a small town, it's like it's a big deal, and people
Yeah.
will like chip in and do it, and that's why like one of the like kind of regrets now that I have like of moving away, because it's like, well, if I was doing this there, it was hard to find people to like be in stuff, but because people didn't act in the area, but
Right,
like
right,
you wouldn't have the hassle of like walking down the street with a camera and people would go, "What are you doing? What's going on? Do you have a permit?" type of shit.
right, right. You know, yeah,
Down
you
here,
could go
everybody's
down, you could go anywhere except for the sheets. We did get thrown out of the sheets for trying to make the movie.
yes, yes,
Um,
yes,
I
we did.
guess, but other than the sheets, they were that'd be fine. And you're right. You know, like when now that you're in Hollywood, everybody is so jaded by it that you don't get that kind of excitement. Whereas if we were in Cumberland or like
Mhm.
Frostburg or something, people would be like, "Oh, that is so cool. Let's do it." You know?
Yeah, and you would get stuff for like way cheaper than
Yeah,
free.
yeah,
Locations
absolutely.
would be like the locations would look a little more authentic than out here because everything out here is just like apartments. Like what I'm
Right.
trying to do with now, it's like the filming I'm just trying to do now before I moved into one setting was just like, well, we all have apartments, but they all look fucking generic. Like,
Yeah,
it's just,
yeah. They all look like like within the last 30 years built apartments.
yeah, it's like, well, how do you make something unique without paying any money? It's like, well,
Right. Whereas in Cumberland, you'd have access to all kinds of different, just homes from 100 years ago, apartments from the 30s, and all that. But still, I mean, I guess it is kind of what it is. And actually, watching that was another thing that I thought of is that I think Hollywood and mainstream film in general really, really needs that kind of revolution. Like it seems like every time that the movies start getting stale, somebody like Romero or Quentin
mm,
Tarantino comes out and kind of shakes things up. And in this century, nobody's really come out and really shaken anything up with a movie. And so now we've got fucking superhero movie after superhero movie. Um, and I mean, there's a few high points here and there. I've seen some. It's not like I've not seen bad films. I mean, I've seen some really good films in the last
mm,
5 years, but
yeah,
nothing like Reservoir or nothing like Pulp Fiction that completely creates a new genre or turns everything on its ear. There really hasn't been that revolutionary film in a long time.
yeah. There hasn't been a film where everybody's been like, oh shit, I need to go see this. I mean, there's been films like that. But they haven't excited me as the way that they've excited a lot of other people.
Right.
Like Pulp Fiction did when it first came out around there in our area. We were just like, holy shit,
Yeah.
this fucking movie
Yeah,
isn't.
we went and saw it like 5 times in the theater because it was nothing you'd ever seen before.
I mean, that has to do with like saturation. Like again, it's like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. It's like I think it's easy to put a movie up on those things. Like,
Yeah.
but it's like it's hard to like find a good movie, like a really solid movie. Not that I
Yeah.
haven't found one, like but
Right.
you just have to like really search. I think.
I just saw something that I wanted to tell you to watch on Netflix, and I can't remember what it was. I thought Ozark was pretty good. I mean, it was kind of more of the same, like Breaking Bad style movie, but it was good enough to watch.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but like I mean, like with Night of the Living Dead, I mean, there was nothing like that beforehand. It was all cheesy. Nothing looked real. You know, the monster came out, usually the product of radioactive materials, and it
Mhm.
chased the girl around or kidnapped the girl, and then the hero killed the monster, and that's the end of it. And I mean, in Night of the Living Dead, the freaking protagonist gets shot in the head at the end. That's how the movie ends. He gets fucking shot in the head, and they meat hook him. You
Well, it's like
know?
the end of Night Riders. Spoiler: he gets run over by a fucking Mack truck.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And
you're like,
like
what?
everything's right with the world. Like I know like they have the big joust to see if he gets seceded by the freaking other guy. And
Mm.
and that all works out, and he's like, okay, it's all good, and then he gets run over. It was almost like that actually really reminded me of the end of Easy Rider. Where
I
they're
think.
just just driving down the road, and the guy shotguns them, and that's the end of it.
I mean, this seemed like Easy Rider mixed with like a Renaissance fair, like
Right.
because they would have like I think they even had a conversation almost like Easy Rider about like about like blowing it and this and that, like a la Easy Rider. I was like, I'm pretty sure they had like 2 or 3 conversations just like that around like a fire.
They
Like
did. They
when
did.
they
Like
had,
there was the one where he talks about how he didn't want to get a whole lot of magazine exposure because people wouldn't be able to tell the difference between like him and Charles Manson or him and Jim Jones, and how he's trying to do something different, and he's not just selling a fare, he's selling a lifestyle, man.
Ed Harris, the ultimate non-sellout.
Yeah,
Like,
and like I mean, and Ed Harris is just so awesome in that because he doesn't have a whole like he's not really even a big part of the movie. Like, he's the main character, yeah, but most of the action and dialogue follows all the other characters, and he's just kind of aloof from it all.
Yeah, I think that's the point. And then at the end, he kind of like starts to like enjoy himself again. Like when like he loses, he's like grateful that he's lost because
Right, all that responsibility's kind of off his shoulders.
it's like I can just enjoy what he created.
Yeah, and get
Because
remembered by a Mack truck.
the entire time he's intense as fuck. Like
He
he's
really is. Like, I wish we could see more intensity out of those kind of actors.
that guy was just like intense from everything. I'm not paying you fucking shit. Ah!
Yeah,
I
like
was,
I mean, I know everybody talks about like Ryan Gosling and how and I mean, and he does have a very good quiet intensity, but I don't think he has the quiet intensity that Ed Harris has. I mean, even in Westworld, like, have you seen Westworld yet?
nah, I haven't.
Well, you know, Ed Harris has that whole like I am super intense and will fucking rip your brain out of your skull through your eyes kind of thing in Westworld. But I mean, he always has that, and he never has to say it. He never has to state it. He never really even has to do anything. He just like has it.
He got like a weird like cadence to when he does get angry, and it's just like so intense. It's just like I think if anybody else was doing it, you'd kind of laugh at him. But since it's just Ed Harris and he like is so fucking committed,
Right.
like it's
Right.
insane. Like when he barks at like Tom Savini for not paying, like he doesn't want to pay the guy. It's like holy shit! Like what movie are you in?
Yeah. Yeah. And like everybody else is like, oh crap, the law's here. We better freaking shape up. And he's like, fuck that. Fuck this fat lawman.
I
I
mean,
think he even calls him fat, doesn't he? He says like, go eat some more donuts, you porker, or something
I think
like that.
I think he calls him Fat Man. Which I
Yeah,
was
he
like,
does. He calls him Fat Man. That's great. That is great.
it was like when he throw like later on he throws a pizza at that one guy, and I've never seen a more intense pizza throwing.
Yeah. Or look at it this way: they're in jail, and they're both in jail, but the cops don't have the nerve to beat on Ed Harris. They got to beat on his little fucking buddy, like because and like the cops are trying to play it like, what's better if we beat on his little buddy, because then he has to see his friend suffer and know he caused it. But we know deep down they're like, we better not beat on that guy because he'll probably fucking kill us.
He voluntarily came to jail, so
Yeah.
Oh my god. So Tom Savini has a giant fucking part in this movie. He's basically co-starring, which is insane.
Right, and isn't he like a famous makeup artist?
Yeah. He's like one of the most famous.
I was gonna say, whenever I saw his name, I thought, isn't he super famous in like horror movie circles for being like this huge revolutionary makeup guy? But that's kind of cool in and of itself too. Is that they were like, hey, why not? And he's probably worked with Romero a bunch of times, and like it seemed like Romero was like, I'm just gonna put all my buddies in this one. I mean, Stephen King's in it, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I mean Savini's from Pennsylvania too, and like
Okay,
he worked on all the Dawn of the Dead stuff,
right.
and then did all the Day of the Dead stuff as well. And he was in From Dusk Till Dawn later on as Sex Machine.
That's right. He was Sex Machine, wasn't he?
Yeah. And he's also like known to be a giant fucking asshole.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I went to a convention a few months back, and he was there.
Right.
I got my picture taken with him, and he was fine with me, but he wasn't like the friendliest either.
Right.
I didn't like take offense to it, but like I heard from other people who were like in lines, they were like, "Oh, Tom Savini, he's just like a fucking dickhead when you come up to him." And I mean, he was fine with me, but like I could see that because like I put my like arm around him. I don't know if he wanted that, but,
right?
Like,
and he was like, yeah.
I think I even threw up like a thumbs up. You know what I mean? So I was like, he's probably like, what is this fucking asshole doing?
Well, and that's one of those things. It's got to be hard, like. I mean, when you're Tom Savini, and I mean, even him, he's not like super famous. He's not like fucking Tom Cruise or Ed Harris for that matter, But I bet you everywhere he goes, like he can't even go get a pack of cigarettes without somebody being like, "Oh my God, you're Tom Savini." I bet that gets old, and especially at conventions, because he probably doesn't want to be there. He probably wants to be at home, like doing bong hits and playing Left 4 Dead or something. And he's got to come to this convention and act like he's nice, and I bet it just gets old. I mean, I'm not really forgiving it because you kind of have to take that responsibility. Like, if you're going to be in show business, then you kind of have to accept that your privacy and that your time is no longer really your own.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I do kind of sympathize with it, you know.
I mean, especially since you're charging $40. You know what I mean? It's like
Right,
I
right.
think I think you were charging $40 for like a signature and a photo, which wasn't too bad.
Yeah, but that's still a ton of money.
But some people charge for both, which is fucking bullshit.
Wow, yeah.
Fucking Robert England was charging like $90 a piece.
Wow.
Like you get your picture taken or a signature for that much.
And I thought Ric Flair was high at $30, and that was a picture and an autograph. And it was Ric fucking Flair. I mean,
Crazy, and
like,
like I
you know,
think I
like,
think
yeah, you're Robert England, and that's great, but you're not Ric Flair. You can be Freddy Krueger, you're still not Ric Flair. I'm just saying.
yeah, I never got his because like the lines were so crazy for his, and it was like,
Right.
and like when he spoke too, he was kind of a dick. I don't know, like he did like a panel for Nightmare. I was like, I don't know if I like you actually. It's like,
Right. Right. You're kind of like, what?
well, it's
Yeah.
like Shawn Michaels, I think, came around here fairly recently, and his was pretty high too.
Was it?
It was like $90 for like I think a picture I think with him or something.
Damn.
It's something crazy.
Well, you know, and it was actually pretty funny, because we saw Ric Flair out in the parking lot. He couldn't find his way in, so he was
Mm.
like just like wandering around the parking lot, and he was kind of a dick. I mean, he wasn't really a dick, but you could tell he was annoyed that they weren't letting him in, you know, and like everybody's like, "Hey, Rick," and he's just like, "Meh, meh, meh," you know, like, and then they let
But
him in. But like as soon as he got in that line, and was actually charging money, I mean, he was just all smiles and super
he
friendly.
was.
Hey, great, nice to meet you. And then like it was so funny because I saw him after the show, and like I mean, as soon as he walked out of the freaking show, he was right back to being like, "Ah, fuck you, leave me alone."
What's his Shane? Shout out to Shane Leatherman if you listen.
Mhm.
He's always got all these pictures of his kid with all with all of them. And it's usually like in a hotel.
Yep. Yeah.
So he just like he's like, well, he gets all these pictures for free because he's just like catching them as they're coming to the
Right. And he's like got like a cute kid to use as bait, you know?
yeah. He's like all of them. Yeah, man. Like it's like sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But that's how he gets around it. So which is awesome. So
Right. So yeah, that's cool. But I just want to reiterate, like I feel like we should do our part on somehow, you know, getting Knight Riders just a little more exposure because I remember seeing it as a kid, like
Mm.
as like a Saturday afternoon movie and being like, oh my God, what is this? I want to join. You know, like I wanted to join up and be a freaking Knight Rider, and it's just like it just shows how out of the box George Romero really thinks about films. You know, that he really doesn't care about conventional formats or what was going to conventionally sell. He's still going to do a movie like that. You know.
Yeah, there's what was the one guy, the announcer guy. Do you remember his name? He was
I know who you're talking about.
like that. I wanted to talk about that too. Like with Night Riders, it's like they have like a conversation around a campfire about being gay.
Yeah.
And at the time, it's just like the way it's done. It's like so just like matter of fact and like really kind of poignant.
Yeah, yeah, and especially in the late '70s, early '80s, when there was still a lot of taboo around being gay, and you know, comedians were. It was still okay to make fun of gay people in comedy, and you know, in the mainstream culture, there really was kind of a whole. I mean, there was a whole gay subplot. Remember, because he was in love with one of the Knight Rider guys. Remember, and at like one point, like he's on the mic and he says, "Hey, do you want to be my lover?" And the guy's like, "Yes, yes."
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because he was like, I don't know what I am.
Yeah.
Or this and that. And like everybody's like, what's cool, man? Like
Yeah,
we're all good with it.
Yeah, we don't care what you are. You're one of us, basically.
Yeah, the one character's like, well, I'm a lesbian and I'm cool with it. So it's like, hey, FYI.
Yeah, and you know, actually, now that we're talking about that, it kind of actually harkens back to Freaks a little bit, like the old classic movie Freaks, like that whole sort of we're a tribe because and we don't care what you are. We just know you're different from society, and that's good enough from us, you know.
Yeah, I fucking love. Man, Freaks is so good too. I remember. I think it was you. Didn't you buy the
Yeah.
VHS copy?
Yes,
Wasn't it
I
you?
did. Yes, I did.
It was the best.
And
That
we
was
watched it over and over again.
I saw it in the theater up here fairly recently. I took a friend of mine to it who had never seen it.
Oh man.
You got to see it, the Egyptian, and it was fucking. It's like, so
I can't imagine. There's so many good shots, just shots in that film. Like towards the end when the guy with the frickin' no legs is crawling through the mud with the razor blade in his mouth coming after her. That was so fucking amazing. Like,
That whole sequence is just like, oh my god, it's like
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen anything more terrifying.
No, it's that whole sequence is just absolute. I mean, like it's such great horror in it that there really isn't a boogeyman. You know, there isn't a bad guy. Actually, the good guys in it are what's terrifying, and that's kind of cool. You know,
What's
and
terrifying, what's terrifying, and also just like, well, yeah, I hope they're gonna get this fucking lady who sucks and like
right.
screwed over the what's his name, the little guy, whatever his name was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like she screwed him over and this and that, and just like made fun of him and stuff. So they're just gonna go fucking take her out and make her into a chicken lady.
Yeah, make her a freak. Yeah, she was. I mean, she took the toast. She drank when they drank. She drank to the toast when she said she was one of them. So she did. I don't think she quite understood the ramifications of that, but that's okay. And I'm pretty sure he never got really any acclaim for that while he was alive. Todd Browning, I think, is who made that movie.
It was banned until
Yeah,
like
like
until you bought the VHS copy of it. I think it was
yeah, I
banned.
think it was banned until like the 80s, and somebody, like somebody told me like, "Oh, you've got to see this movie. It's amazing." And it's crazy that they would ban a film like that
Yeah,
that is like again so poignant, that the monsters in it are the people who you sympathize with, and it shows these people as freaks. It doesn't show them like, oh, they're freaks. It really emphasizes the point that they're human beings, and that
yeah.
that the regular people are the freaks, and that, like, I mean, that's just mind blowing.
I'm trying to look up why it was banned. What was it? I think it was just because it was the cast. I mean, there's just.
Just too graphic.
I think so. Let me look here.
Hmm.
It was thought to be overly exploitative. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Which I can see that.
I guess I could see that a little bit, but I mean, the actors in it, they probably didn't see it that way. I mean, they were all lifetime sideshow freaks. It was probably the biggest break they'd ever gotten.
Yeah, I thought they treated the characters like well. I don't think any of them as freaks themselves.
Right. But who knows? So, all right. Well, we're coming up on the old 30-minute mark. I can't think of anything else. There's a couple things I wanted to say when I was watching it, but now I'm kind of like, was Friar Tuck, was that the same guy that was in MASH?
I don't think so.
Like, I kept going back and forth on it. I meant to look it up.
No, but he's been in a ton of movies.
Right.
I feel like he's probably been like a few of the movies that we've actually watched for the podcast.
Right, right.
He's one of those guys. I feel like. Let me see if I can find him real quick. Because he's like, I think they mentioned in the commentary who he is too, and like how many movies he's done and this and that. Let me see. I don't know if I could find him though. Yeah. Does he have a picture?
I mean, he just really looked like one of the characters from MASH. Like, I was like, oh, I know that guy. And then I'm like, no, I don't think that is that guy.
No, I don't think so. I think, but for some reason, every time I picture him in some sort of movie, he's a cop eating a lot of food all the time.
Right.
I don't know. He's not like main characters, but he's usually like one of the side cops always eating.
And I would like to end the podcast on this, right? Is we need to bring back casual nudity in films. Like,
Yeah.
In the late 70s and the late 80s, there was a pair of boobies just randomly thrown in there, and now, like, you still see some nudity in films, but, like, they really build up to it, like, it's like, bomb, naked woman, whereas it used to be just, like, the girl pops out of the bushes and she's got her top off and, like, okay, or, the guy busts in on them and the girl's got her top off and it's like, okay, it's, like, not a big central feature of it. And I just really like that. I think that should come back in films.
Was it? Yeah, they busted on Friar Tuck with the large woman, and she just got hits out like with pizza. And
yeah, they're like feeding each other. It's awesome.
I think it's like, oh, look at that. Like you wouldn't see that probably nowadays.
No, you definitely would not see that nowadays. You wouldn't see it at all because people would get mad that they showed a big old pair of boobies on a big old lady, and there's nothing wrong with a big old pair of boobies on a big old lady eating pizza. Like, that is a good thing, and we need more of it.
Him and Friar Tuck her and Friar Tuck were having a good time with pizza, and like he had like devil horns on.
Yeah,
like, a good time. Like,
yeah, like I'm like, those two know how to party.
Yeah, it's like he knows what's up. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, just
absolutely.
like
And like,
random.
and
The ran-
like I was thinking about it when I saw it. I was like, it's just so casually presented. Like it's not, like now if you see somebody naked, it seems like they actually build up to the shot of seeing it naked, and it's like it's almost a payoff in and of itself. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure it is, but you want the payoff to be like a little bit more subtle, and you want it to not take away from the plot or the film. Um,
it's
and
usually not as used as comedic effect. I feel
right,
like for this movie, it was just like a little like kind of like a haha because like Firetech was like she's like stood up and she's got her titties out, but
yeah,
it wasn't like a sexual thing. It wasn't like a exploitive thing. It was just like a weird moment. I don't know. It's really weird. Like yeah, and I don't know if you can do that anymore. I guess if they are, I'm not watching the movies that they do it in.
right.
But if people are doing it, please tell us where we find these movies and if they're any good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. So Pat and Paul have a request for a movie they want us to request us to do, but I can't remember what it's called, so I'm gonna have to get back to you. It's called, I think. Hold on, let me check the thing.
All right.
Oh, why did that just? Yeah, and because they were raving about it, and they were like, "You need to do the next podcast on this movie." And I'm a little worried that it's terrible because uh, they freaking definitely were going off about how great it was, which makes me a little bit nervous. Although the last thing Paul recommended me was Zombievers, and that was okay.
Yeah, some people was pretty good. Yeah, yeah.
I liked it. I like movies where they don't take themselves seriously like at all.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice and short too. So I was like, all right, cool. It was like a nice like maybe 75 minutes of that.
Right.
I feel like I remember that having like the longest credits too. Was that movie? It had like really
Yeah.
like 2 minute long credits to make it
Ridiculously long.
feature length.
Get Hit is what the movie is called.
Get Hit. I'm afraid to look that up.
I am too. Maybe
Get,
The Big Hit.
I can't even find it. Is it a movie?
Maybe that's not it. Let me look again.
It's not Get Out, is it? Because that's not the Die Hard movie.
No,
Sure.
The Big Hit.
Oh, The Big Hits.
Yes.
The Big Hit's fantastic.
Okay, so let's do that. They were talking about how great that was. We'll do that
Oh my
next
God.
week.
I think I looked it up to like fairly recently and was wondering where the guy who directed it went.
Right.
He's like this like Hong Kong action director.
Yeah, Shea Kirk Wong.
Yeah. Oh, that movie's like super 90s.
Nice. Yeah, well, we did Knight Riders, which is super late 70s, early 80s, so we might as well go ahead and do super 90s. And, this is weird. I saw this on Reddit, and it's so true. Like, it said the 70s and the 80s and the 90s all seem like really distinct decades with their own personalities. But, like, from 2000 to 2017 seems like it's all the same goddamn decade. Like...
Yeah, I don't know what like from like 2000 like from the Y2K like on like I don't know what.
Yeah, like I mean, like Y2K to 2010. Like, what can you say? Like, oh, like you can't say like, oh, everybody wore swatches like in the 80s. Like in the 80s, everybody wore swatches, or like in the 90s, like everybody wear those goddamn surf style things. But like, I can't really think of anything that everybody did in 2000, or like in the early 2000s.
That's probably because we're old.
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't.
Yeah, we're probably just really old and out of touch. That's a good point.
We stopped like following fashion at a certain point. It's like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good point. Good point. So, all right. We'll tune in next week, guys, and we're gonna watch The Big Hit, which is a fantastic quintessential '90s movie starring Mark Wahlberg, Christina Applegate, and Lou Diamond Films.
You almost called it
Cow, Avery Brooks, and Elliot Gould. I mean, Elliot Gould. He was in Ingmar Bergman movies, for God's sake. So.
Yes, he was.
So that should be all right.
All right.
All right. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.